Juanita J. Hall, Master EDD, Master of Education, has served in leadership, consulting, and educator roles for the University of Houston, Lone Star College, and San Jacinto College. She has also served in urban and suburban school districts. Her experience and professional passion include uncovering and applying proven practices and transformative insights, including coordinating academic success development programs for students, administrators, teachers, educational leaders, and faculty. Additionally, she presents as a keynote speaker and she facilitates student success workshop sessions focused on accelerating and improving academic success. Her academic planner, Professor Hall Planner, is available nationwide in university bookstores. She provides students with strategies to overcome barriers and obstacles so they may continue progressing toward diplomas, degrees, and careers. Welcome, Juanita.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Tell us about yourself. What's your professional path? How did you get here?
Well, I think it started when I was pursuing my bachelor degree at the University of Houston Clear Lake. I was in an organization called the National Society of Leadership and Success. And in that organization, doing leadership workshops and helping my peers, matriculate through the semester with leadership skills, it also kind of brought up academic skills. And a lot of students I saw were so engrossed in the organization and doing all those activities, but were forgetting why they were at the university and failing their classes. And so that kind of started me with the thought process of, I think I want to help students a little bit more. And then when I applied at University of Houston for my master's degree, I was blessed to also work there in a division that I had to help students with strategies and just come up with a lot of different strategies to help them be successful. Mm-hmm. And so what I did was reach back to my own path, my own journey as working on my social degree and my bachelor degree, and just started putting strategies together. Mm-hmm. It was
well. Then, how did you decide to get a master in education? Then it seems like you were aiming toward higher education, and now you've worked in higher education as well as K-12. So, how did you make that decision?
Well, when I started working at U of H, working with that group of students at the university mm-hmm. level, and mm-hmm. it was in STEM specifically, I really enjoyed working on that level, and also seeing the students who matriculate from mm-hmm. high school to the university, and they really needed a lot of skills because I saw that they weren't as prepared as they should be. And so that's the reason.
I see. Well, you have an interesting background. I started out as a classroom music teacher and have done lots of different things within education. And I was curious about your background and how you wound up being so dedicated to student success. In fact, really, what led you to be so concerned about student success?
Well, as an older student going back to school, it was a little bit more difficult, and being a single mom, mm-hmm. trying to balance everything, school, mm-hmm. work, my kids. Mm-hmm. And then when I was working on my bachelor degree, seeing students, younger students actually going through not the same thing, but similar things. And so that is what, brought me on the path. Students really need some strategies. And when I was in school, we didn't have academic counselors like what I do right now. And we didn't have, these big tutor centers like that's at most of the universities. We had to figure things out on our own. And so that's kind of how I got into it. And I thought, you know what? I think I can help students a lot. And then I had a thought about a tool called Professor Hall Planner. I know it's a little blurry, sorry. But
not
Professor
a plug,
Hall
is that, Juanita?
What'd you say?
That wasn't a plug, was it?
Oh, a little bit. Professor Hall Planner that actually have strategies. I would see all these planners, but they didn't really have what was needed for students to be successful right at their fingertips, right?
So Juanita, you listed the planner and then you talked about strategies. So I guess we better jump right into your bullets here.
Right
So
into
where
it.
should we begin?
First, the first thought that I want students to have when you think about going to a university is make smart, strategic, and significant choices. And that includes your major. So when you think about the university, think about what can you do to make sure that you are academically successful.
What does that include? What does that entail?
That will entail taking advantage of the resources that is right there on campus. Providing adequate time.
But which campus? For example, that bullet sort of implies that this is before college. So when you say on campus, do you mean a high school campus?
Any campus, high school and university campus.
Mm-hmm.
So the high school students, it's a little bit different for high school students. But the thing that they should be more, the high school students should be more concerned with being prepared for the university, knowing that they, as soon as they get to the campus, to look for the resource center, to look for resources such as the tutoring center, academic counseling or academic coaching, and student success workshops. All of these strategies are in place to make sure that the student is successful. But I know.
Juanita, I'm still stuck on choices for college, because I would say that the college one chooses has an immediate effect on the student's career and life.
Right, it does. In choosing college, you have to also be sure that you're choosing the right major for yourself. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses. Like I would love to have an engineering degree, but I know that that probably wouldn't be the right thing for me because that's really not my strength. Math, is all math and science classes. So being smart about what choices you make as far as your major.
Well, so what you just implied was that a student should think very carefully about what he or she wants to study, major, even before college.
Absolutely. But it's not unusual for students to change their major 2 or 3 times sometimes before they even graduate. But it's always going to be best that you think about what you want to do in your career and your life and choosing your major, because I see a lot of students that take classes over and over again and they're losing time, money, and energy.
Now, earlier we were speaking about assessments that can help students make decisions about what to study. Could you speak a little bit about those types of assessments?
Right. And these assessments can also be found online. Typically, once you're about a sophomore or junior, some professors do, give these different tests that will show what area of career you would be best for. And typically these tests are pretty accurate. So that's something to take into consideration. Maybe, I've seen students who think they want to be an engineer, but once they start taking classes, they realize they don't like it. And so by taking these tests, you can find out ahead of time before you lose any money in college classes. You can find out ahead of time what your interest may be. And it's usually 2 or 3 things, and you can kind of figure it out from there. And by doing research as well. How much does
I am telling you, I am still stuck on high school, because it sure seems to me that I guess what you're suggesting is that one should do this a number of times throughout one's education. And my first thinking here in our conversation is that we want some of that to happen in high school before a student even chooses a college. For example, I remember in high school, my assessment suggested I should be a teacher or a preacher. And there you go. Here I am.
A teacher. So you chose teacher instead, right?
Right. So I'm still stuck on that happening at the high school level, even before college.
Right.
Oh, I hope we're not stuck completely.
I
There
think
you
we had a
go.
little technical difficulty, but we're okay. Yeah.
Yes, we did. We're moving again. Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we've been here long enough, so perhaps I've been beating a dead horse. So maybe we
No,
better
but
move on. Juanita, what do you
but
think?
you're right. You're saying that they should, it would be better to make those choices or have a good idea of what you want to do when you're in high school. You're absolutely right. That would definitely be the best choice to make. Yes.
Yeah. So that once you arrive at college, you're at the school where it has the major that interests you, and you can
Absolutely.
hit the ground running. All the courses
Absolutely.
you take would add up to, they would matriculate to the degree that you need for the career you might want to pursue.
Right. Right.
Okay, we better move on.
Okay.
Improve class performance for a great education. What does that entail? What does that mean?
Improving class performance. So I always tell my students, when you think about at the beginning of the semester, you have to mentally prepare yourself for how you're going to perform when school starts. And so using different strategies, making sure that you go to class, making sure you're in a position where you're not, driving too far to class, wanting to make friends in class is really important, because I always hear students say, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to do my own thing. But the beauty of the university is forming those friends, forming relationships is really important. So you have to think about how can I be my best at the university, and what does a successful student look like? What do they do to be successful?
Juanita, tell me, could you give us somewhat a profile of the type of students with whom you work? Age, background, preparation, and such?
Most of the students, well, honestly, most of the students I see as an academic counselor are students who are already on probation, which means they have a 2.0 or below, unfortunately. And I help those students bring their GPA up by walking with them from the beginning of the semester to the end, and making sure that they're doing all the things that they need to do.
So what would you say typically are the challenges that your students face? What is it that they're not grasping about college?
The time management. Time management is a big key. And I always say that students who typically fail the semester is because of lack of time management. And how do you tighten up your time management skills? A planner that should be constructed at the beginning of each semester. You take everything off the syllabus and put it on your planner strategically, so that you're never behind on your homework assignments, your where you're supposed to be with your note taking, which will make sure that you're prepared for your exams. And it's all about time management.
Could you tie time management to class performance, academic performance?
Yes, time management. If in my planner there's testimonials of students, I have videos of students that say that if it wasn't for a planner, if it wasn't for my planner, that they would not have been successful. In order to be successful, you can't get behind. Okay, so at the university, there's a lot of material, there's a lot of content to cover. Once you get behind, it's very difficult to catch back up. So making sure that you have a planner, making sure that you have it outlined in a way where you should be able to open your planner and see what every day looks like, every day, every week, and every month. That is definitely going to help you be more successful. A lot of students have jobs as well. So holding down a job, going to class, social life, you want to have fun as well. It doesn't have to be all studying, because I want students to enjoy the journey, their educational journey. And so if they put all these things in place, it'll make life so much more easier, and they'll be a lot more happy.
Now, Juanita, let me toss this your way. Like I said, I've been in education for a long time. I've done lots of different things. And we would say that for every hour in class, a student should expect to spend 2 or 3 hours studying.
Absolutely.
2 or 3 hours studying. So again, could you help us, or for those who haven't been there yet, students, let's say, help us tie time management with academic performance, class performance.
And that is providing adequate time. So at the university, it's actually more than 2 or 3 hours. I have to be real. And especially when you get into the math courses or the science courses, engineering, especially any STEM major, is going to be a little extra difficult. I've worked personally with these group of students, so I know that the rigors of the university is very high and it's very stressful. And so they have to make sure that they allow adequate time to be able to study. And it's not always that easy.
Oh, well, that takes us to our next bullet: provide adequate time, resources, and space for meaningful work. So we've talked about time. What do you include in resources?
Resources is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. But students, sometimes it appears they're afraid of resources. Now, they have to also remember at the university that these resources, you're paying for these resources. Okay, they coming out that tuition, that big fat tuition. So you're paying for it. I always tell students, you're paying for me. You're paying for me, so please take advantage of me. Let me be your academic coach. So on every single campus in high school, middle schools, there's always some type of student success center with academic counseling or academic coaches. There's tutoring. I see so many students who have failed the first exam, the second exam, and I ask, have you gone to tutoring? And they say, oh, no. I thought I could do it on my own. Well, that's not working. And so if you fail the first exam, your first thought should be, let me find a tutor center. Let me find an academic coach. And let me look at some student success workshops, because almost every university campus have those resources.
So Juanita, when a student says, I'd like to do it on my own, what does their own entail? What does that include? What does that mean?
It means studying by themselves and not getting help from the professor, not asking questions, not talking to other students in their class. For some reason, when students, in high school, students, they're always on top of each other and talking to each other and communicating, goofing off. But when they get to the university, everybody is quiet and they're on their own and they don't talk to each other, even if it's in an auditorium. I had one student who said she could not find not one study partner out of 250 students in her class. Not one study partner, because she didn't want to talk to anybody. And so do
you think that some of it might be shame, embarrassment?
Yeah, some of them feel like they're begging. But I always say that the brightest students always say, what can I do to be better? What does a successful student look like? And that is a study group. If you do any research, you will always see that study groups, students who study in study groups do significantly better than those who do not.
Okay, let's talk about space. What do you mean by space? I have some ideas. I have some pictures in my head, but what do you mean by space?
By space is, allowing yourself the time to do what you need to do, because sometimes we're pulled in a lot of different directions. I know this may be crazy what I'm about to say, but I always ask my clients, do you have a significant other? Do you have a boyfriend? Well, please don't get one this semester. Can you wait till the end of the semester? Because that's a crowded space when someone else comes in and you're trying to focus on school. Maybe you have a job. Now you have somebody else in your space, right?
So when you say space, you're not talking about physical space. You're talking about space within one's mind, life.
It could be a lot of different, there's a lot of definitions of that space. Anything that directly affects that student and their ability or inability to do what they need to do.
Interesting. Yeah. See, I think most of us would think of a physical space, but I know that I have also said I ain't got any space in my life for you or for this. I ain't got time or space for this particular thing right now. I'm going to set it aside until later on.
Well, yeah, that too. That could be the space, and but it could also be, a lot of students say, "Oh, I can't study at home because there's too much going on." But they can't. They also are, they're commuter students. I drive an hour away, and I don't want to stay at the campus. And so, what do I do? And it's about the student and I figuring out the best way for them to make sure they have that space where they can study in peace and not have anyone interrupting them all the time.
Okay.
So it's a lot.
Well, we better hop to the 5 S's of college success. What are the 5 S's?
The 5 S's of college success is in my planner as well. And the five student success strategies I give to all my clients, regardless to their major. The first one isn't necessarily a strategy, but it's very important as a student, and it's having a desire to succeed. Because if if I'm having a session with a student and I'm giving these great strategies, my expectation is that they go back and they use these strategies so they can be successful, right? And so that's important. It's about how bad do you want it, and what are you willing to do, or what are you willing to sacrifice to get it? And typically that is your time. The second strategy is constructing a strategic planner so that you're never behind on your homework, and it's allowing you to study ahead of time for your exams. You cannot wait till the week of an exam to start studying on a university level. The third strategy is finding a tutor center on campus. Very important. I've yet to see any student I referred to tutoring that came back and said, you know what, that didn't help me. They always say, oh my God, I wish I had been doing that. Now I understand the material. Now I'm passing my quizzes. Now I'm passing my exams. Fourth strategy is study group. Y'all knew I was going to say that, right? Study group. Study group is so detrimental, and it's beautiful, but a study group only works when you're meeting consistently every week. So a lot of students think it's okay. Hey guys, the day before the exam, let's go and study together. Well, actually, you're just wasting time, right? Because what if there's new information? What if you've been studying the wrong material? Now you have to rethink all this material for the next day. However, if you're meeting consistently throughout the semester, at least 2 or 3 times a week, you'll all be on the same page. You'll all be teaching each other. Therefore, you'll be able to walk into your exam with confidence. Fifth strategy, professor office hours that students hate to take advantage of. I have to force students to go to their professor office hours. They're always so intimidated. And especially if you're not doing well, we don't want to show our faces. We kind of want to hide, but I want them to put it out there. Tell the professor, listen, I need help. I want to understand this material, and start getting clarification on the material so you can understand it, so you can pass your exams. And remember that as important as grades are, forming relationships is important as well. So when you go to your professor office hours, you're showing them that you want to learn the material, you want to pass, and you have a desire, you're being proactive, right? And you're forming that relationship with your professor. And when you're in a study group, you're forming relationships with your peers, and that's important as well. You never know who's going to be in that great job once you graduate, and you can reach back and say, hey, remember me? I need some help.
Well, Anita, I want to return to a couple of things that you said. In our conversation thus far, you've used the word strategic a number of times. So maybe we ought to define what you mean by strategic.
Strategic means, when you go into the semester, you have to think strategically. How am I going to do this? How am I going to go to these classes? How am I going to work? How am I going to do study? And have a social life. So you have to be strategic. So when I help students strategize their planner, to outline it by taking everything, and I did mention this, taking everything off their planner and taking everything off their syllabus and putting it on their planner strategically. So you have to allow yourself the time and look at every single day. For example, say you have an exam, you write the exams, you're going to write all your exams down, everything down on your planner. But let's just take this one exam. You write the exam down, and then you count backwards. If that exam is 2, 3, or 4 chapters, then you should start studying 2, 3, or 4 weeks ahead of time.
That is
Outlining. So you go through, remember that the lecture drives the exam and the book supports the lecture. So you have to incorporate your lecture notes with your book notes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that 4 weeks ahead of time for an exam that's covering 4 chapters, by the end of each week, you can have your notes for each chapter. Mm-hmm. Now you're a week ahead of time for the exam. So mm-hmm. all the material is going to be familiar.
Yeah.
Not to forget that. Right. Not to forget that during this time, you're going to tutoring, you're meeting with your study group, you're meeting with your professor in office hours. So mm-hmm. when you get down to that week before your exam, hey, all you have to do is study and review, and you will ace that exam. Mm-hmm. There's
years ago, I read an article. I think the title of the article was, "But I read it twice." Now, what's your response to that? If a student says, "Well, I read it twice," what is your response to that student?
You're no longer in high school. When students say, and my daughter said the same thing. She said, "Oh, when I was in high school, I didn't even have to study. Now I have to study. Oh my God, I'm in a university." Yes, twice ain't gonna make it. That's not gonna cut it. And a lot of students can say that you have to really put in that time and that effort. The effort that you put in during the semester is going to show at the end of the semester.
Mm-hmm. We better take your next bullet there. Reinforce the breadth and depth of students' own learning. What does that mean?
Well, like I said, a lot of students that I see are already on academic probation. They've already, feel like they've been beaten down. I do see a lot of tears. And I love to bring out their power, because at that point they feel powerless. And so them understanding who they are and that, they can do this, there are students who are taking classes over and over every single semester. And I have one. So for a quick example, I had 2 students taking physics for the fourth time, 2 students. One student, every time I said, meet with your study group, go to tutoring, are you studying? I started doing homework, I got frustrated, I left it alone, or I didn't meet with the study group, or I don't have time for tutoring. And that student is now taking, it's the end of the semester, now taking physics for the 5th time. However, the other student who I saw made an appointment every single Monday throughout the entire semester, 4 or 5 months, right? Every Monday, 10 a.m., he did everything I asked him to do. He made an A in physics. And then he took physics 2 over the summer and made another A.
Well, great. Well, why not? We have like a minute and a half left.
Pardon me?
We have around a minute and a half left.
Oh.
And we've talked a lot about time management already. So
because it's all about time management
that we've covered, and we've touched a lot of different topics here. If you were to boil it down to one takeaway, what would that takeaway be?
If you're in high school, make sure that you understand the resources that is waiting for you at the university and take advantage of them as soon as you step on that campus. If you're at the university, look for the Student Success Center. It is so important. Even if you don't go to tutoring or the Student Success workshops, make an appointment with your academic counselor or academic coach to help give you strategies, because they will guide you to tutoring, to your professor office hours, to Student Success workshops. The academic counselor on campus is your key to academic success, and they will help you. That is the a major point right there.
Mm-hmm. And if people want to know more, how can they contact you?
You can contact me at Juanita@ProfessorHall.com. You can also find my academic planner, Professor Hall Planner, online at University of Houston bookstore, and it's also available at universities nationwide. So,
Juanita, I want to thank you for being our guest tonight. It was a great conversation, and good luck with your plug there. I'm David Johnson from Transform Ed Consulting, and I'd like to thank my dear colleague, Cassandra Williams, who is the brains behind Educational Innovations 360 Degrees. And thank you for being with us this evening. Good night. See you next time.
Thank you. Good night.